It is good to be with you again. And tonight we're presentation 5 of Islam and Christianity in prophecy, and it's Antichrist at war. We are going to be covering in sequential order how Bible prophecy is being fulfilled in recent time. I'm going to give a quick review. Daniel has a series of kings of the north. It is not where their capital is located, in this case starting with Babylon, because that's east, but the desert in between, they went up and invaded from the north. Then the Persians came in from the north. Then the Greeks came in from the north. Then the Greek Empire split 4 ways, but Daniel cared about 2, Seleucid north, Ptolemy south, and Jerusalem is caught in the middle. Then the Romans come in from the north, and Jesus dies during the time of the Romans for your sins and mine. And the Roman Empire splits, and Islam hits Jerusalem from the south, and Christianity strikes back with the Crusades from the north. There are 3 conflicts: the Crusades, the Ottomans, and the time of the end. And if you haven't noticed, Jerusalem is still caught in the middle. It always has been, but so are God's people of faith all over the world. So these 3 conflicts: Islam, Ottoman Empire, and radical Islam at the time of the end. And actually, there are a lot of people want to know if they have the same God, the Muslims and the Christians. Here's the honest truth. Jesus said that his true disciples would love their enemies and do good to those who persecute them. So if we go back to the Crusades, was it the Crusaders or the Islamists that loved their enemies and did good to the other side? Neither. Here's your answer. There are many Christians and many Muslims who are worshiping the same false god, or of force, fear, and anger, do it our way or else. There are some Christians who have found the true God of love, truth, peace, and forgiveness, and there are some Muslims that are in search of the same true God of love, truth, peace, and forgiveness. And in Daniel 11, right at the end, those that are truly following Jesus in the Bible will unite from both sides to share the last warning message to the world. Now, I said it in the last presentation, but I'm saying it one more time. No political party saves you, only Jesus saves you. No politician saves you, only Jesus saves you. No church or culture saves you, only Jesus saves you. But I can tell you, God's people always do get caught in the middle. Now, I am an equal opportunity offender. If you lean very hard one way or the other, you'll likely get stepped on a little bit, but I will get the other side too. And you notice there's a lot of bad news in our world? I'm here to tell you the bad news points to the good news, because the Bible predicted this right before Jesus sets up his kingdom. And so the bad news is pointing to the good news. And Jesus didn't give us permission to hate anyone. No one. So if you're going to love, in Daniel 11, the king of the north and all their people, and the king of the south and all their people, neither side's going to love you because you love the other one. You're going to get caught in the middle, because that's what happened to Jesus as well. Now, some terms to understand. The papacy, the king of the north, is ruled by a pope who claims global, political, and religious power. Church and state combination. Well, king of the south, a caliphate. It's ruled by a caliph who claims global political and religious power. Church and state, church and mosque and state, unity. It's the same idea. And you're going to get caught in the middle between these. The radical Muslims are the Islamists who want to bring about a global caliphate, and they want to establish the capital of their global caliphate in the city of Jerusalem, or what they call Al-Quds. Now, folks, if all the radical Muslims in the world want Jerusalem as their capital, is there any chance Jerusalem could still be caught in the middle? Definitely, there's no way out of this, from this prophecy not being fulfilled. I mean, it's coming. These radicals include the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Erdogan in Turkey, Iran, El-Shabaab, and Boko Haram, and others like that. The moderate Muslims are those who oppose to a caliphate by force. And yes, they exist. There's actually a fight to the death in parts of the Middle East between these groups already. The moderate ones are the ones that are likely to have signed or are about to sign Abrahamic Accords, uniting with Israel and the Christian West, what we would call it. Daniel would call it the King of the North. Now, let's take a look at how current events are lining up with Bible prophecy. Let's read Daniel 11:40-43. This is the section of the prophecy that we live in right now. At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him. So we have the king of the south and their allies attacking the king of the north and their allies. And the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and many ships. He shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. He shall also enter the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape from his hand, Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. He shall stretch out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans and Ethiopians shall follow at his, the king of the north's heels. Kind of like a little puppy dog going along. All right. Could that kind of thing happen? Yeah, very easily. Back in 2020, there's this preacher up at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a Muslim preacher, and that mosque is up on the Temple Mount, by the way. All right? Siam, the preacher, can be seen telling the enthusiastic crowd that 3 prophecies would soon be fulfilled, that the rightly guided caliphate will be established, that Jerusalem will be liberated and established as its capital, and that Islam would achieve world domination. And once they achieve world domination, all the world will be at peace under Islam because you will be either Muslim or dead. That's where they're headed. In a book called Thunder of Justice, there was a whole bunch of prophecies of Mary around 2020. And in those prophecies, there was a predicted Islamic Antichrist. Well, many evangelicals and talk show hosts now teach that the Antichrist would be Muslim. Several years ago, I heard Glenn Beck saying that on his radio program. So we have Islam and their allies attacking the papacy and their allies, King of the South attacking King of the North, and the papacy and their allies counterattack. They enter Israel, and Islam gets divided 3 ways. One part escapes. That's the good one. We're going to save it for last because I like to end with good news. All right? The second one, Egypt and many countries are overthrown. And the third one, Libya and Ethiopia, they follow. So part escape, part are overthrown, and part follow the king of the north. Revelation says, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. You're going to have to get rid of radical Islam if all the world's going to follow papal-led traditional Christianity. And Daniel explains how it happens. Now let's take a look at a map with the ancient borders that were in existence when Daniel is talking about this. You have Egypt, relatively similar to what it is today. All of North Africa was considered Libya, and Ethiopia is this whole territory down in like this. Think about this territory. If you were to take this territory, well, including up here, or Jordan, and come around like this, that's a majority Muslim territory, isn't it? By far. And so when the king of the south collapses, Egypt is overthrown, Libya, Ethiopia follow the king of the north, and these people escape by not being overthrown or following the king of the north. So Islam splits 3 ways. Now, in our last presentation, we found that the French Revolution, out of that comes Marxist socialism, and it's supportive of the king of the south. That was Revelation 11. But in Revelation 13, during the same time period, the U.S. rises to support the king of the north, traditional Christianity. You also have the European area that throws its support behind the papacy. And so in the last presentation and tonight, we're talking about how the radical left and radical Islam will be overthrown. Moderate Muslims and the moderate left will follow traditional Christianity, and some escape by following Jesus and the Bible. By the way, the King of the North is split two ways. Those who continue following the King of the North, and those who choose to follow Jesus and the Bible instead. So both of them have a group that comes out, and we'll see that by the time we get done tonight. So if we look at a kind of a time chart here, we're here in the third conflict, and we have out of the French Revolution, the radical left joining in with Islam. They're going to go down in this third conflict. And the moderate ones, the moderate Muslims, will follow traditional Christianity, and those who follow God will share the last warning message with the world. So how does it happen? Let's take a look. In 2011, our first book was published, and I had some expectations. Radical Islam was going to anger the papacy. The papacy would call for war against radical Islam. The United States and its allies would be the military enforcer. Radical Islam would be overthrown. Moderate Islam would follow papal-led Christianity, the Christian West, and some Muslims would follow Jesus and the Bible. That was my expectations in 2011. The publisher was dragging its feet, and I said, I wish you'd hurry up and publish this book. And they said, why? I said, I want it to be prophecy, not history when you publish it. And they did a pretty good job of getting it out quickly. In 2014, in sequence, all those things started happening. So yeah, it was a good idea that it was already out. In 2020, I was more clear and clarified on how the radical left is the time of the end ally of the King of the South. And that is, since 2023, has become painfully obvious. But I'm actually holding a book here. It's the revised version of our book, because right after 2014, it's kind of weird reading a book predicting things that, come on, they're already happening. Well, they weren't in 2011 when it was written, so we revised it and put things now from future tense to past tense and showed how they're actually happening with the footnoting on how that was fulfilled. And there's a newer book even since then. But let's take a look. In sequence, you're going to watch the unfolding of the whirlwind. 2014, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the self-proclaimed leader of the Islamic State, caliph of a caliphate, stretching across Iraq and Syria, has vowed to lead the conquest of Rome as he called on Muslims to immigrate to his new land to fight under its banner around the globe. So on the first day of a functioning caliphate, they say they're after Rome. I didn't know it'd be so clear on day one that the King of the South would go after the King of the North and say so. But just remember that every time you have a caliphate, you end up with a holy war, because both the King of the North and the King of the South want to control the whole world. There's not room for both of them on the same planet. You had Arab caliphates, you had the Crusades. Ottoman caliphates, you had the Holy League conflict, with several wars in that. So they say they're after Rome and the world. My question then was, how long would it take the Pope to call for war against the Islamic State? And if it did, how long would it take the U.S. to strike the target? It took 5.5 weeks, and the Pope called for war. He did it on August 7, 2014. Pope Francis appealed to world leaders on Thursday to help end the crisis in northern Iraq after a sweeping advance by radical Islamic State militants forced thousands of residents of Iraq's biggest Christian town to flee their homes. His Holiness addresses an urgent appeal to the international community to take action to end the humanitarian tragedy now underway. And in the next couple of days, he sent out his ambassadors to make it clear that he meant military action. The next day, the United States, President Obama, said America is coming to help. Within 36 hours of the papal call for military action, the United States struck the Islamic State caliphate for the very first time. That's pretty quick. Pope said attack, U.S. did it. That should put us into the third conflict and into Revelation 13 scenarios. During the 2016 presidential election, Donald Trump was asked about radical Islam. He said the point is the radical Islamists, want to do serious harm. We have to take them out. We have to take them out very, very swiftly and viciously if necessary. We've got to destroy the brand of jihad. Well, I didn't know for sure if it would be him or not, but I knew that somewhere along the line there would be a U.S. president or leader that would be wanting to take out radical Islam, because that's what the prophecy told me. Well, he won. During his inauguration, he said, "We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth." Egypt, the land of Egypt, I believe will radicalize and go down. But there's a people. Every nation in Daniel 11 has both a place and a people. The place goes down, the land, but the people, the radical Muslims all over the world. And if you want to check it out, in the 1920s, modern radical Islam began in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood movement coming out of Egypt. So it all fits. And Trump wanted to completely eradicate them. How? By forming new alliances. And who were those new alliances with? Moderate Muslims, the Abrahamic Accords. Daniel has radicals overthrown, moderates following, and some coming to Jesus. We're watching Daniel 11 three-way split happening right in front of our eyes. But most people don't notice it because most people don't read their Bibles. And even those who do read their Bibles, most of the ones that do read the Bibles don't read Daniel and Revelation very much. And so even they don't notice it. So the many, let's just come down to the text. Donald Trump, on the 6th of December 2017, had said that he was going to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Soleimani, the commander of the Al-Quds force, shows up in Turkey. And you have a bunch of Muslims showing up there that are really furious with what Donald Trump had just announced 6 days before. And Soleimani is the commander of the Al-Quds force. Al-Quds is the Muslim name for Jerusalem. The Al-Quds force is the Iranians' basically special forces that are trained to fight outside of Iran. Oh, why would they call their special forces the Al-Quds force, the Jerusalem force? Because it's their intention to take Jerusalem and establish the caliphate capital there. Only they want it to be a Shiite version of the caliphate. So he says his nation is ready to support the Palestinian forces in the Gaza Strip. Problem: Iran and the Al-Quds force are Shiite and the Palestinians are Sunni. They don't like each other very well. But when Donald Trump wants to make Jerusalem, recognize it as the capital of Israel, all of a sudden he is ready to start sending arms and money to the Palestinian in Gaza. Now you know why things are going on in Gaza the way they are. It's all connected. Here's a picture of Soleimani. He's the guy with the radio in his hand. Recognize the building behind him? The White House. There's a bomb going off at the White House. The U.S. flag is falling. Over here, this is a Iranian propaganda picture. Their propaganda pictures are all kinds of fun. I enjoy looking at them. We will crush the USA under our feet. That should be interesting to see him try to do that. Donald Trump lived in the White House at that time. He lives on the second floor. They're going to assassinate Trump. Oh, they have tried on multiple attempts already. Donald Trump does not like them very well. By the way, how would you like to be Soleimani after that picture? We'll find out that has an ending of its own. The Pope heads off to the United Arab Emirates. The subtitle of the Atlantic's article was "The Meaning of the Pope's Historic Visit to the United Arab Emirates." What is changed in brief is the dual rise of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamic State. The following analysis applies equally to the Emirates and to Saudi Arabia. They have a common enemy. Both the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia and the papacy are all threatened by the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamic State. Remember a guy by the name of Khashoggi that was dismembered in the consulate in Turkey, in the Saudi Arabian consulate? Do you know why they didn't like him, the Saudis? He was a Muslim Brotherhood supporter, and he was a friend of Osama bin Laden. And if you're a Muslim Brotherhood supporter and a friend of Osama bin Laden in Saudi Arabia, if you stay in Saudi Arabia, you're probably going to lose your head because they've been executing a lot of those folks. There is a fight to the death between radical Muslims and those who are Muslims who don't want to be as radical. Then, in 2019, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was killed, the Caliph of the Islamic State. They just replaced him with another Caliph, the professor. He didn't last very long and he got killed. Now they have another Caliph. Nobody sees him or hears from him. He's hiding very well. But they just killed his second in command about a month ago. So they got close to him. Soleimani, the guy with the radio, the commander of the Iranian Al-Quds force, was killed in a drone strike ordered by President Trump on January 3, 2020. The Iranians were furious. They said, "We are going to strike the United States directly. We're going to strike United States troops, and we will not do it through a proxy. We're going to send the missiles directly from our own forces." And President Trump said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you. If you do, you just need to know something. If you kill one American, I already have 53 missiles dialed in on targets. And those targets, you might want to know, include religious targets, cultural targets, and military targets. If you know American and NATO targeting, you know that Americans and NATO try very hard not to take out cultural and religious targets." But he put that right on the first wave. Why? He's telling them, if you kill an American, we're going into holy war form. We're not going to mess around anymore. Better not kill any Americans. Well, that was January 3. 4 days later, Iran sent waves of missiles out of Iran at American bases in Iraq and Syria. This was actually a Drudge Report. It's just a web page that has current news stories from all over the world that are popping on it. And these were European newspapers at this time. One of them was declaring its war between the U.S. and Iran. Because if American bases are getting hit with missiles, and they knew Americans would die. And they pretty much believed that Trump would retaliate like he said he would. But those missiles hit the bases. 50 to 100 Americans were so close to bombs going off that they got concussions. But no one died. How do you hit so close to give 50 to 100 concussions but not kill anybody? I would say God had his hand in that. I want you to see a verse in Revelation chapter 7. I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, on the sea, or on any tree. Do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, till we sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. Basically, the problem is God's people aren't ready. And God called a timeout. It's very interesting to watch this timeout. I think there's been several of them over time. There are no time prophecies in Daniel 11 or in Revelation on this material. We're past the time of time prophecies. Once we're in the 3rd conflict, it is a sequence prophecy, and God can stop it or start it at will, depending on if his people are ready or not. Then COVID hit. Boy, that gave us all a chance to practice standing up or not standing up for what we believe, and it gave governments a chance to practice controlling people. Maybe both sides should have practice on that, right? And the threat of radical Islamists disappeared from the news feed in the Western world. Not in Africa and Asia. The radical Muslims were still on the roll, and the Islamic State was working down to the equator in Africa. But remember, the political left leans south towards Islam, and the political right leans towards traditional Christianity. And what now happens coming out of COVID is this becomes even more clear. In other words, after the timeout, it's going to become more intense. I want to talk about some of the similarities now between the radical left and radical Islam. Both the radical left and radical Islam hate Israel. I mean, Ben and Jerry's ice cream. You know, those guys were pretty radical leftists. They hate Jewish people so badly and Israel so badly, they didn't want their ice cream sold for Jewish people to eat it in Israel. Sounds a lot like some radical Muslims I bumped into. When Biden was supporting Israel during his time, Democrats splinter over Israel as the young diverse left rages at Biden because they wanted Israel destroyed. The moderates were supporting Israel. The radicals wanted it destroyed. The 3-way split is happening in the left and Islam. It's phenomenal to watch prophecy being fulfilled. Radical left and radical Islam both hate capitalism. During COVID, thousands of Americans became socialist. Both the radical left and radical Islam hate the papacy. The French Revolution that starts out the radical left, they took the Pope captive. And that's what radical Islam's always wanted to do. Take a look at Crisis Magazine. This is their About page. Crisis Magazine is a conservative Catholic group. Not since the Cold War have we experienced such violent political, cultural, and spiritual unrest. Not since the Civil War has our country been divided so bitterly against itself. Our civilization is under attack from the far left within and radical Islam without. And in the process, Donald Trump lost the presidency. The guy that wanted to wipe out radical Islam. He was pulled out. Both the radical Islam and radical left hate American exceptionalism. One says death to America during their present protest. The other ones say down with America. Not a lot of difference. They both like or hate the same politicians. The radical, let me just use Soleimani for a moment. The guy that was killed with the radio, calling in a strike on the White House. When he was killed, radical Muslims all over the world were furious. Moderate Muslims were quietly happy because he was causing them trouble. Radical left, even in the U.S. Congress, was furious. You had a group called the Squad, made of radical left and Muslim representatives in the U.S. Capitol that were furious about it. The moderate left, moderate Democrats, were quietly happy. I want you to notice how the parallels just keep happening over and over again. Both the left and Islam like social justice. Homophobia, Islamophobia, all these kind of terms. And from 2020 on, I mean, that was a huge deal. But there was one major exception. LGBTQ. What do radical Muslims do to homosexuals? They kill them. So, do you remember hearing the radical left complaining about radical Muslims killing homosexuals? No. The political right said it was wrong for Muslims to kill homosexuals. The left went silent because you don't expose the evil of your own allies. It was amazing to watch. And you can have groups, homosexual groups, that have signs protesting in favor of Islam and Hamas. And if they were to go into Gaza with their signs, homosexuals for Hamas, Hamas would kill them. It's a bunch of... We need some critical thinking, is what we need. But here's the bottom line. Both the radical left and radical Islam say Jesus was just a good man, but not God. And the Bible is just a book. It is not your authority for life. They agree on that. Now, the moderate Muslims and the moderate left, some of them are not so sure Jesus is a pretty good guy, and the Bible, maybe we should consider it. It's just interesting to watch how the splits are going. And when you take a look at where Christians are being persecuted today, 47 nations, Muslims are persecuting Christians. 11 Marxist socialist ones where Christians are being persecuted. All others only comes up with 4. So when we take a look at this, we have radical Islam that has very much lined up with radical Islam now. And when Islam falls, the radicals go down, radical left will go with it. They are so identified with radical Islam all over the world right now that across Europe, the radical left is in trouble. Why? Because they're tied to radical Islam. It is a known link all over the world now, and it's taking down both of them together. The moderates will join with papal-led traditional Christianity, and that's an ongoing thing right now. In September of 2023, the United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia were on the verge of a deal. It would give unheard of assent to Saudi nuclearization. Israel girds for Cold War with Iran. So Israel was going to approve of the Saudis getting nuclear technology for nuclear energy from the United States. And that would be a part of a grand scheme that Saudis would become part of the Abrahamic Accords with Israel and everything. This is September of 2023. But remember, Iran and Gaza doesn't like this idea. Iran and Hamas. And what happens? October 7, a couple of weeks later, Hamas attacks Israel. And you had tremendous amounts of people killed, taken captured, and remember the Al-Aqsa Mosque up on the Temple Mount? What was the name of the Hamas operation to attack Israel? Al-Aqsa Deluge. They're going to try to get the Temple Mount back, although they have kind of control of it already. because Muslims are the ones that control what's happening on the top of the mount. But they wanted to get all Jerusalem back, and it triggers a war with Israel. It was Israel's 9/11. The very next day, the New York Socialist Party announced that they were rallying for President Palestinians. That was while the fighting was still going on in Israel. The radical left openly joined with the radical Muslims. And from that time on, college campuses across the U.S. and around the world, the radical left was openly in favor of radical Islam. Now, I find it interesting that when you get into a war like this, neither side is innocent. There are bad things happening all over, right? But remember all those young people out there chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And while they're doing that, they're accusing Israel of genocide. Do you know what from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free means? I don't think they did. And if they did, they're really warped. But that's in the Hamas charter, that they're going to get rid of every Israeli from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean. They're going to eliminate the Israelis, which would be genocide, while they were accusing Israel of genocide. It was interesting to watch. There's a lack of critical thinking on all sides. We need to make sure we're thinking clearly. Across the Middle East, there was a surge of support for the Palestinians as the war erupted in Gaza. Russia and China became allies of Hamas and Iran. And this is a Hamas official. We will repeat October 7 again and again. Nobody should blame us on October 7, October 10, October 1 million. Everything we do is justified. Once you get to that point, you're definitely in holy war mentality. But Israel sometimes gets in holy war mentality too. And I'm suggesting the whole world is on the verge of holy war mentality. And when that happens, radical Islam will be overthrown and destroyed. We have Israel war alliances. Hamas has Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Syria, and the radical left. It had Syria. We have Israel. It has U.S. and NATO, traditional Christianity. All right? But that's not the only war going on, is it? Here's another one. Ukraine war. Russia has China, North Korea, Iran, Syria. Oh, Ukraine has U.S., NATO, Israel, traditional Judeo-Christianity. Do you notice they're basically the same alliances? Which points out the fact that World War III has already begun. It's not two wars. It's one war with different aspects going on in different parts of the world. Now, during the fall of 2024, there was rapid attacks against both Hezbollah up in Lebanon and Hamas down in Gaza, and Israel pulled off all kinds of really spectacular attacks that took out leadership, and a lot of innocent people died too in all of that. And they were really damaging the radical Muslims that they were fighting against. Meanwhile, whole Christian communities have been wiped out in Nigeria. You probably don't hear very much about it, but for years, 3,000 to 4,000 Nigerian Christians have been killed every year. In 2014, I was presenting to a group of about 100 pastors up in Boko Haram territory in northern Nigeria. And at one point, they had men with machine guns standing at the doors while I was presenting. Just in Boko Haram territory. Things can happen in a hurry in Boko Haram territory. And how many of you would go to a Christian church in the United States if basically every week somewhere a Christian church was either hit with a firebomb, a truck bomb, or guys with assault rifles came in shooting up the place? How many Americans would still go to church? The African churches are packed. They're willing to die for Jesus. And they are in fairly large numbers. They're not hiding that they're Christian. Authorities search for answers as France's classic churches keep burning down. The church burnings highlight the tensions brewing in France, and its immigration policies have come under increased scrutiny. 2/3 of religious building fires, however, are caused by arson. Whoa. Arson. He stated that in France, one mosque is built every 15 days, while one Christian building is destroyed at the same pace by arson. An official with France's Ministry of Interior stated there were nearly 1,000 anti-Christian hate crimes in 2023. Oh, who is it that's doing a lot of that? Mostly Muslims, some radical leftists. Oh my. Daniel and Revelations, time of the end allies for the King of the South. Then Trump runs for presidency again, and the reason I thought he could win, he's linked to the religious right, Revelation 13. He hates radical Islam and the radical left, Daniel 11. And after the assassination attempt, he thought he was God's man. I don't blame him for that thought. I mean, if somebody took a shot at me just as I turned my head and just clipped my ear, I'd be pretty grateful too. But, just today in a short bit, I was listening to a news show. Somebody was there that was at Butler, Pennsylvania when that happened, and said, from that moment, I and President Trump all think he was saved by God. And he's serious about trying to do things in a hurry. After he was elected, Trump, speaking to Hamas, release all hostages by inauguration or all hell will break loose in the Middle East. Well, they started releasing people and they stopped. And he's now in office, and he's basically giving the Israelis permission to do whatever they think they need to do to get him. Interesting, at the same time, we have a swing. For decades, the intellectuals were questioning Christianity, and they were very secular and atheistic. But all of a sudden, in the last little bit, intellectuals are swinging back to finding God. If all the world's going to follow the King of the North, traditional Christianity, that has to happen, and it is. And the swing away from Christianity in the United States has already, the pendulum has stopped, and is beginning to come back with people more interested in Christianity again. I just hope they get the real Christianity, not a counterfeit political version. Trump's flooding the zone has so-called resistance running in circles. I mean, which action from Trump should the left be protesting against? Well, it depends on which day and how many of them there are. I mean, these people are just going crazy because there's so many things to protest against if you're on the radical left. And in his new term, it's a new term and a new Donald Trump, a host of executive orders, unconventional nominees, and sweeping agencies reforms have the Washington, D.C. establishment in a panic. Not only that, it's got the world politicians in a panic, it's got NATO in a panic, it's got the world markets in a panic. Oh, sounds like a whirlwind just hit. I want you to think about what happened. Donald Trump was in office. It looks like everything's going to break loose with a caliphate supporter, Iran, because there's multiple caliphates wanting to take over. And God calls a timeout, takes Trump out of office. He gets attacked mercilessly for 4 years while he's out of office. Do you think that makes him like the radical left and radical Islam any better? No, he's now furious. And then he comes back in. Take a look at this one. Paul Craig Roberts, a fight to the death is underway. Some people will regard my title as hyperbole. It is not. Trump, I believe, understands he's in a fight to the death. The American establishment tried to discredit and ruin him, to imprison him, to assassinate him. I'm not endorsing this. I'm just showing you what's happening. And if you join Donald Trump's administration, you know you just put a target on your back. Because the left's going to try and take you down. But if you're on the left, you know you've got a target on your back because Donald Trump and his group are going to try and take you down. It is a fight to the death. It's very similar to what's going on in Saudi Arabia between the Muslim Brotherhood supporters and the prince and his supporters. It's all part of the same war. But because people don't study prophecy in Daniel 11, they have no clue what's going on all around them. This is a sign you can actually get online to take to radical left protest. Wake up and revolt, my sign for tomorrow's protest. They want 1939 Germany, let's give them 1789 France. And what have we been saying? The radical left comes out of the French Revolution. Well, Germany was a radical right movement. And that's what the sign is about. They want to stop Trump. Let's give them 1789 France. I have a question. Which would you rather live under? Nazi Germany or French Revolution? I don't want either. They were both bad news. This one actually resulted in more deaths over time. However, if you're a Christian, you're supposed to love both sides. So there's a challenge for you. How to love both sides in a very, very divided world. Interesting to note, the King of the South Alliance has some trouble. Hamas, they're getting pounded. Hezbollah, they're talking about disarming. They've been pounded. They lost their whole 3 or 4 levels of their top leadership. Syria, they collapsed. And the new radical Islamic government from a different breed is taking over, and Israel's pounding them too. Something really interesting happened during the fall of Syria. In one day, Israel wiped out the entire Syrian Navy and almost all their Air Force. They only killed about 15 people in the process. They saw an opportunity. They thought they couldn't miss it. What happened? While the Syrian government's falling, all the Navy guys brought their ships in and they disappeared into the woodwork, so to speak. They didn't want to be identified. They could get killed being on the wrong side right now. They're ditching their uniforms. Air Force lands their planes. And Israel says, we could go, all the ships are in the same spot. We can just take it out. They all sunk in place. Most of the airplanes blew up on the runways. There were no soldiers around hardly to get killed in the process, and Israel thought that was a great move. They could take out the machines without hurting people. Houthis. Israel was starting to hit them. Now the U.S. is taking that on. Canada, the far left government, was in serious trouble. The only thing that can save the far left government is Canada hating Trump worse. France, they're tired of radical Islam and the radical left. They just took out the major leader of the political right and said she can't run for president or for prime minister, whatever. Germany, they're swinging right. Austria's swinging right. Netherlands swinging right. Everybody's tired of radical Islam and the radical left. This whole world is changing. And it's all changing in line in what I would expect from Daniel 11. I would also expect desperate measures from the political left and radical Islam. Remember in World War II, as the Japanese were losing, they started using something called kamikaze planes. during World War II, Germany tried what we know of as the Battle of the Bulge, a desperate attack. My father was nearly taken prisoner during the Battle of the Bulge. But expect desperate measures from powers as they start to weaken. What about Egypt? Egypt is violating the peace deal with Israel. Israel's U.S. envoy warns Egypt is reinforcing Sinai bases. Egyptian army spokesman, we are preparing our army in case Israel does not listen to our wise advice not to occupy the Philadelphia corridor. Except they did. And Egypt is reinforcing areas they promised not to reinforce. In Daniel 11, Egypt is overthrown. Keep your eyes on Egypt. Russia warns against U.S. strike on Iran nuclear sites. It would be catastrophic. Donald Trump told NBC, if they don't make a deal, meaning Iran, there will be bombing. It will be bombing the likes of which they have never seen before. That was not an April Fool's joke, but it was April 1. April 8. War between U.S. and Iran has never been closer, and Tehran won't back down to Trump, warns ex-UK ambassador. The former diplomat revealed how Iran could hit back, sparking a huge conflict if Trump launches strikes. The war between the U.S. and Iran has been close for almost 2 decades. It keeps coming up to it. The thing of it is, it's never been this close. Speculation, within a couple of days, this whole thing could be exploding. Also, at the same time, I'm looking at intel reports and people that are privy to them that the militaries of the world are thinking that we could be at war with China within 6 months as far as invading Taiwan. So think of all this now as we go back and read this. At the time of the end, the king of the south and their allies shall attack him, the king of the north. Oh man, that push has been happening all over the place. And the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind. It looks like everything is primed to go. We are closer than we were in 2020. I don't know if the Lord will call a timeout or let it go. I was on an airplane and a lady asked me, if he lets it go, how much time do we have? I said, if God lets it go, everything I know of in prophecy could easily be fulfilled very, very quickly. Like in less than a year, Jesus could come. And she looked at me and she said, but I'm not ready. And at that moment, we changed conversations. And I shared with her a gospel, took her back to the gospel. Because in Jesus, we can each be ready. If we're trusting him, we ask him to forgive our sins and cleanse us and take over in our lives. We are never good enough on our own, but he is. And he can take care of it. And somebody might say, but I'm a sinner. Oh, that's okay. Because Jesus said he came to save sinners. Unless you're admitting you're a sinner, you can't be saved. So if you say you're a sinner, you're in just the right spot to be saved. And let him take over. And you can be ready for all this stuff. And the good news is, when Jesus comes, it's the process that he brings in with that and what follows to bring an end of sin and suffering for everyone. And that's good news. So we have the radicals overthrown, the moderates follow traditional Christianity, the king of the north, and some escape by following Jesus in the Bible. So let's take a look at what happens very briefly right here. And tomorrow night we're going to look at it even more. But the good news I said we were going to end with, and that is When radical Islam and the radical left are gone, this area known as the 1040 window, where only 86% don't even know a Christian, 86% of the people that live in that area. When radical Islam and the radical left go down, that is going to open up to the gospel like never before. The desire, the interest is there. My wife and I have been in these places, many of them. And we are preparing pastors and stuff for how to deal with this and what to be ready for. And we've got fantastic stuff coming. But things to watch for Egypt radicalizing, global Islamist attacks. FBI thinks they could happen any time. King of the North allies in Israel. The United States could easily enter. We have forces offshore at any time, ready to go to their aid. We already have THAAD systems operating with American boots on the ground in Israel. And the United States is the primary enforcer for the Revelation 13 King of the North Alliance idea. And remember it says, and he shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. Be the last thing the King of the North does. But could the United States and the papacy, traditional Christianity, ever take over in Israel, enter Israel and set up their headquarters there? Just remember, Donald Trump can upset the whole world's thinking in a moment at any time. Back in February, everybody's trying to figure out how to do a Gaza solution, and Trump says, oh, it's simple. We're just going to take all the Gazans out of the Gaza Strip, and we'll turn it into a resort. And the discussions are on, and how terrible, and then all of a sudden a couple of nations says, well, we'll help. And nothing will ever be the same again. There is a disruptor that doesn't think like all the officials and the experts thought before. And he keeps coming out with stuff that kind of match Daniel 11. That doesn't make him good. It just makes him king of the north, just like to be expected. So I like to ask this question. Hey, which one's more dangerous, the north, the south, or the political left, or the political right? I hear somebody saying all. And that's somewhat true. But there is one that is far more dangerous for you than the rest. And that's the one you lean towards. If you lean left, the political left is more dangerous for you. If you lean right, the right's more dangerous for you. Why is that? You will not be deceived by the side you don't like. You don't like them. You challenge and question everything they say and do. But you make excuses for your side. And you try and diminish the problems from your side. Your side will deceive you and take you down. Now, there is one caveat that whichever one's in power is the most dangerous for everyone. When I'm in a country that is controlled by Constitution by the Catholics, my family's been on the wrong end of assault rifles from them, the King of the North. When I'm in a country that's controlled by Muslims, I'm not too worried about the Catholics and traditional Christians. I've got my eye on what the radical Muslims are doing there. And it's a little more interesting in those places, I guarantee you. And so whichever one's in control is the more dangerous for everyone. But for you, the one you lean towards. Now, good news to end with. Those who escape, Edom, Moab, and Ammon. These shall escape from his hand, Edom, Moab, and Ammon. In Revelation 12:1, it says, and at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Now, the interesting thing here is the word escape is underlined and so is delivered. In Hebrew, they're the same word. So these people that escape are the ones delivered. And by the way, these people are delivered when God's setting up his kingdom. Those are God's people that are delivered. That means Edom, Moab, and Ammon are part of God's people. Now, you can keep going in Revelation 17 in a parallel statement. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life when they see the beast. So in Revelation, there comes a point of time, everybody's following the beast or the king of the north, while only those who are in the Lamb's book of life are not following the king of the north. Daniel, radical Muslims go down, they won't follow. Moderate Muslims follow. Edom, Moab, and Ammon are not overthrown and they don't follow. That means they have to be in the Lamb's book of life. So you've got a group of Muslims that come to Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Amos, on that day I will raise up the tabernacle of David, which has fallen down, and repair its damages, and rebuild it as in the days of old, that they may possess the remnant of Edom and all the Gentiles who are called by my name. Oh, Edom, Moab, and Ammon escape. When Jesus restores the Davidic kingdom, Edom is a part of those who escape. Hey, that makes sense. Take a look at a map. They always work in Daniel. You have Jerusalem and Israel and Judah over here. Look, Edom, Moab, and Ammon. And this line here is the Davidic kingdom. Whoa, if Jesus restores the Davidic kingdom, Edom, Moab, and Ammon will be a part of it. Remember, we have a land and a people, the place and the people. Here's the land of Israel, and beside it, here's Western Jordan. They're side by side. We saw that the people of Israel are anyone who accepts Jesus as Lord and Savior. You become an Israelite. Ephesians 2 and Jeremiah 31 say that. And out of Islam, you have a group of people that join together with God's people. The place and the people always work together in Daniel. Now, Joel 2. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord. So what Joel is saying is just before Jesus sets up his kingdom and comes, he's going to be pouring out dreams and visions. And sure enough, all over the Muslim world, by the hundreds of thousands, Muslims are having dreams and visions, and they're accepting Jesus as their Lord and Savior, and the Bible as their authority. That's supposed to happen just before Jesus comes. Daniel 11 process, the sequence, should be happening when Jesus comes. And it's all happening. My suggestion is, live ready. Trusting in Jesus, and you don't have to be afraid of what's going on in the world around you. There's an interesting Muslim teaching. The Jews were divided in the 71 sects, one of which is in paradise and 70 are in the fire. The Christians were divided in the 72 sects, 71 of which are in the fire and one is in paradise. My ummah, which is Islam, this is supposedly Muhammad speaking, will be divided into 73 sects, one of which will be in paradise and 72 will be in the fire. That's interesting. So when I'm talking to Muslims and I actually talk about that God is going to draw some Muslims and some Christians together to truly follow Jesus in the Bible, once in a while I have a Muslim say, I've heard about something like that. And all of a sudden they tune in and want to know more about what does the Bible say about that. It's kind of fun when that happens. You know, there are a lot of Muslims that say if Islam is a religion of peace, why so much bloodshed? But if Christianity is a religion of peace, why so much bloodshed when we look at history? And when they tell me that, I say, you know, God doesn't like what he sees in either one either. But according to the Bible, there will be some Christians and some Muslims that come together to serve the God, true God of love, truth, peace, and forgiveness. And they will have an amazing work to do for Jesus in the closing moments of Earth's history. And we'll get into that more tomorrow. So what should a true Christian do during this? You're called to love people on all sides. You should be living ready to trust Jesus. And by the way, when I'm talking about those dreams and visions, I've met many of the Muslims that have had dreams and visions. You know, I have not personally seen Jesus in a dream or vision, or have a conversation with Jesus in a dream or vision. It's kind of fun when I'm talking to people who have. And they become followers of Jesus as a result of what they've seen. Something's going on in our world. I hope you're awake. I'm just here to tell you, we live in interesting times, and I think it's exciting times. And I can't promise you everything will go smoothly for you. I promise you, I can't promise myself that. I mean, my wife and I go places where something could go wrong. That could go wrong here too. So we have papal-led Christianity overthrows Islam and its allies. Papal-led Christianity is in control, with the U.S. there as its major supporter. What happens next? Well, that's tidings from the east and the mark of the beast. Let's have prayer as we close. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for your word. And Lord, your word is illustrating that we are living right in the time of the end, just happening like you said. But Lord, I ask that your Spirit will be with each one of us here. Help us to trust in you and not in ourselves. And Lord, help us to learn to love people like you do. I ask that in Jesus' name. Amen.